Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today I have ventured back into War Thunder Naval, as I do from time to time. But you see, the last time I made a standalone video on War Thunder Naval, I was expecting that to be the last time I talked about it, short of them actually adding in like the Bismarck or the Iowa into the tech tree, which hasn't happened yet. But anyway, so I made that video about 4 months ago. It was titled, "This was supposed to kill World Warships, but now it's dead." Ironic. I remember when War Thunder Naval was first announced, myself and many others like, oh dang, is World Warships going to finally have some competition? Which, that would have been huge, because with War Thunder starting out with aviation, which absolutely just dog walks World of Warplanes, aviation mechanics and fighter mechanics and such, they later spread into War Thunder Ground, which was pretty cool that they expanded into tanks and gave World of Tanks some healthy competition. And still today, there is those of us that do very much enjoy War Thunder's ground combat over World of Tanks. I am one of them. I love ground in War Thunder, as maddening as it might be at times. I do very much enjoy it more so than I do World of Tanks. And now that they were expanding into ships, it's like, oh, okay, so this is interesting. I was hoping that this was going to evolve into something that could seriously challenge World Warships for its title as, well, really the only and king of early 20th century naval arcade combat games. And War Thunder, across the board, of course, leans more into the simulatory side of things, right? It's more realistic when it comes to how armor works, to how shells work and stuff, and ranges are more realistic and all that jazz. And that led to some problems with War Thunder Naval initially, where it's like, okay, we're really engaging from like 15, 16, 17 kilometers out. And I don't know if you guys played War Thunder Naval back in the day when the engagement ranges started that far away, but you're literally shooting at pixels across the ocean, which is very boring, it's very time-consuming, it's very, very slow-paced, even slower-paced than World of Warships, and it wasn't that fun. And you can go see some of my older War Thunder Naval videos. It's again, literally, I don't know if they even show up on YouTube with how, muddy YouTube gets with its compression and all that jazz, but that's what the gameplay was like. And then, as time went on, the game mode evolved more so, and they pushed the engagement ranges closer, because it was pretty fun. And still, in my opinion, when you get into those close range engagements, that's where a lot of the fun is had in Naval. And close range for War Thunder Naval is like 7-ish kilometers. Actually, that's darn near point blank range by War Thunder Naval terms. Now, of course, too, when you push ships that close, things start to really get screwy, because when you go from a realistic approach with naval combat, and you're realistically designing the ship's armor schemes and all that, which in real life, of course, ships were designed to sail basically in a straight line parallel to each other and exchange broadsides, and that's what the armor was designed to do from like 15 kilometers out. But then when you push everybody close together within like 10 kilometers, armor doesn't really work that well, and it leads to you getting one-shotted in many cases, which is very frustrating in War Thunder Naval. But anyway, I talked about that and more in my first War Thunder Naval video. And the catalyst for that video was me sitting down. I was originally just going to make another video where I just sat down and I just played War Thunder Naval. Again, I do this from time to time. Usually, a few times throughout the year, I'll pop in, see how the game mode is doing. And that's what I was intending to do with that original video. But when I sat down to film that original video, I sat in queue for like 5 or 6 minutes every time I was going into a battle in War Thunder Naval, which was obscene. Because before, I would sit in queue for a couple of minutes, and yeah, no, fair enough. It's the least played mode out of War Thunder between, ground and air. So, okay, whatever. But now we're getting to, like, consistently past the 5-minute mark. And then when I would drop into a match, it was, like, half full of real players on each team, and the rest of the team were bots. And that's not a good look, because I was playing the Scharnhorst, and the Scharnhorst is at the highest tier in War Thunder Naval. So this is top tier in War Thunder Naval, which is where most of the player base plays. I mean, that's what, like with World of Warships, World of Tanks, World of Planes, everyone plays at top tier because that's kind of the point of, grinding your way up to the most powerful vehicles in game. So I was sitting in matchmaking for like 5 minutes plus at 8 p.m. on a Friday evening, prime time game time, a time slot in which you can get into a tier 10 match in 2 seconds in World of Warships. It's taking me 5 minutes in War Thunder Naval. So that prompted me to make that first video, because if your top tier matchmaking is taking you 5+ minutes and the team is half made of bots at top tier, then yeah, your game is pretty much dead at that point, in my opinion. And then I got all types of comments in that first video, a lot of them agreeing with what I had to say because, well, it's glaring obvious problems what's going on with War Thunder Naval, besides, the taking the mode that was designed for realistic combat, shoving into close quarters combat, not the best map design, the fact that you can just spawn in and get nuked by someone with a bigger, just happens to have a 16-inch gun or, large gun, because, again, in War Thunder, it kind of boils down to, with, like, artillery, do you have a bigger gun than the other guy? Yes. Can it get through his armor? Yes. Okay, you can one-shot him. So, that's great. So, besides all that, again, the matchmaking just being 5+ minutes for full bot games, yeah, or darn full bot games, yeah. But anyway, I got a bunch of comments saying, oh, you're just playing at the wrong time, or I think someone said Naval Enduring Confrontation was running that weekend, which I didn't see that as an option to hop into when I went to play Naval. If it was, I probably would have joined it, because from what I understand, it's a little bit more enjoyable than the usual realistic battles. But anyway, so all these crazy comments saying that, I'm wrong about this, that, and the other. Like, hey, World of Warships, you play below tier 5 and everything's bots. And yeah, you do play below tier 5 and everything's bots in World of Warships, because, like, most players can get from tier 1 to tier 4, or really tier 5, in, like, 10 games. Because the economy down there is very forgiving, and it's very easy to progress through the first, like, 4 tiers in the game. When I go back and I regrind a line from, not to tier 10, I can get through tier 1 to tier 5 in, like, 3 games, if that. That's slow for me. If I'm using economic bonuses and boosters, I can get through it in 1 game, So that's just how World of Warships is designed. But yeah, sure, below tier 5, bunch of bot games in World of Warships. But anyway, I went back this weekend, no Naval Enduring Confrontation, and guess what happened? I sat in queue for 5 minutes, and I got, on average, about 3 to 4 real players per side. Rest of them are bots. Yeah, it's worse. It's worse than before. Again, Friday evening, around 8-ish p.m. after I got done streaming on Twitch and YouTube, I made Saturday's video, then hopped in War Thunder Naval. So again, around 9 p.m. Primetime game time, North America. And again, 3 or 4 real players. The rest of the team's bots. Which, I mean, it's cool. It's fun to, I guess it's fun. It's easy earnings to beat the crap out of bots. But, like, again, the grind is so hellish in Naval that it doesn't really help all that much. And it still just boils down to this very mind-numbing mode where you're really just trying to guesstimate where your shells are going to go and try to keep up with the range for the shells, because that's typically what you're doing in War Thunder Naval. You're firing at one target, you're trying to guess how short or how long you need to send your shots so that your shells impact the ship around the magazine, so you can detonate the magazine and get the kill on the ship. That's mostly what you're doing. You're not touching your rudder. You're not really messing with your speed at all. You're just in a straight line, because if you mess with your rudder and you mess with your speed, that throws everything off, right? And again, I think that is probably the best aspect about War Thunder Naval, the firing of the guns. That's what makes it the most interesting thing. But just by it being more realistic, that of course means you have to, well, play it more realistically. And again, that's what naval combat was. You sailed parallel to each other and exchange artillery fire. That's how that worked in real life. You wouldn't really be maneuvering all that much. But in World of Warships, you know, you're dodging shells, you're playing with your throttle, because the game takes care of all the more complicated parts of aiming for you. It takes your ship speed into account, it takes the enemy ship speed into account, and you're just making, you know, some guesses as to where you want your shells to go without having to worry about, you know, your ship's speed and heading and all that jazz. And that's what happens when you hit X and you lock onto a ship in World of Warships. But in War Thunder Naval, you have to do that. And that's a very down and dirty, you know, description of the aiming mechanics and the differences. There's a lot more that goes into it on both sides, but that's just, you know, a simple explanation. So when you take that aspect away from it and say, okay, now you have to do all this mental gymnastics and stuff and, you know, try and figure out where you need to send your shells to go, at least a very boring gameplay style, albeit a more realistic gameplay style, because again, that's what happened in real life, but fairly boring all in all together, in my humble opinion. And I mean, again, too, even with it being more realistic, it's still a little arcadey, because, you know, you're landing consistent shots on these ships left, right, and center, whereas in real life, of course, the real life hit rates of artillery duels during World War II was definitely not, you know, anywhere near what you can achieve in, you know, War Thunder Naval or any video game, right? And I can see how people enjoy that, but it just leads to a very boring gameplay loop. And again, the map designs are not great. You know, getting nuked when you respawn is pretty annoying. It's happened a few times to me, more than a few times to me, but that's kind of a problem with War Thunder in general. You know, the enemy team, if they really want to, they can just drive into your spawn and murder you. And there's some maps where you can, you know, sit outside of the player's spawn and shoot into the spawn and murder players as they load in once their spawn protection is gone. So that's kind of suckish, but that, again, that's kind of an across the board thing for War Thunder. But yeah, I don't think I'm wrong in saying the mode's fairly dead. It is being, you know, dragged along by the success of War Thunder as a whole. It's just taken them forever to get some of the bigger names in there. They're getting into like some of the early, well, later dreadnoughts. The Hood's in there, so that's cool. But, you know, you need those big names to attract players to this mode. You know, Iowa, Bismarck, King George V, Yami. You know, those are the ships that draw people in and then get them sucked into the game. They don't have that yet. It took them forever to get to the Hood. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are ships in there that, yeah, their names are recognizable to us, right? But when many of us first got sucked into World of Warships, we didn't know about all these other historical ships. We just knew about Iowa, Yami, Bismarck, Hood, because of the History Channel, or because of, you know, whatever media we were consuming at the time that was like, you know, naval history light. And then we fell down the rabbit hole, and now you're reading about, you know, the Johnston and Sammy B and all these other, like, Indianapolis, you know, Jaws, people know that. But you guys get what I'm saying. You know, we learn more about these obscure ships and have these cool stories and stuff. But War Thunder Naval just it still doesn't have that big pull. And I think they're going at it a little bit, you know, too little too late at this moment. I do honestly hope that the mode does recover and comes back and makes a bit of a comeback, because I do want World of Warships to have some competition, you know, so where wargaming will stop, you know, screwing around with some things that they shouldn't be screwing around with, and get to fixing some of the bigger problems the game does have. So hopefully it'll rebound, and hopefully we'll get that, you know, spirit of competition between the two modes. But right now, World of Warships just has the better gameplay, the better maps, which is very weird saying that, because World of Warships maps, a lot of them have some problems too, but they're far better than what War Thunder Naval's got going for it. So guys, that is my 2 cents, my follow-up video to that first War Thunder Naval death video, I guess, as you could call it. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.